Okay. Oh. Oops. So it looks like Matt's not going to make it, but I'm happy to chat. Ah. Hello, everyone. It sounds like Matt's not going to be able to make it, so I'm happy to discuss any topics you all have. I have only been doing administrative stuff, and so don't have anything to share here.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Also, hello. Yeah, for me, it's like what action items and how can I help in this project because I missed some last meetings, so maybe how can some free action items that maybe we can divide it and help or something like that if it's available. Yeah.
So I have one thing that you could certainly look into. So Matt has been pursuing a lot of S-bombs by basically looking through people's CI to figure out what they're doing. But there's a standard way to store S-bombs in a container registry alongside the containers. So it might be worth also poking at, 5 or 10 projects that produce containers and see if they just happen to be publishing S-bombs alongside their containers.
How are the release in the open source projects, for example, are using the SBOM, how they are creating these kinds of things?
Well, we're really only interested in consuming the S-bombs. We don't actually care how they're created. And I was just going to pull up.
Yeah, this part of creation of S1 will be mainly in the CI/CD, something. For example, talking about the CNCF open source projects. No? Do we have an issue open about this to check how it's? I will open also the issue.
Don't know if we do. I just dropped in a link to SigStore's to ChainGuard's documentation about how to use cosign to fetch an S-bomb. into the meeting notes. If people need a link to the meeting notes, I can do that too.
Okay, in the hack markdown.
Yeah.
Okay, I will open the will check.
So it may be worth just poking that and seeing, how many container images fall out where people they've been publishing them, but they don't specifically document how to fetch them. If we look back to September or so, I gave a list of 10 projects or so that I knew produced SBOMs because I found in their documentation how to fetch them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most of them. Kubernetes is in there because someone insisted that they did. And so I added them to the list. But
do
I'll
you
drop
have the
that.
list?
I'll drop that
Okay,
in.
okay, I can see it right now in the amazing. Yeah, that makes sense. Also with a project that I am thinking that how to do a best practice about security in generally, that will be because it's part of the release of the projects, no? How they are using this, how producers one.
Yeah. So what I did for most of this list was I just went to every graduated and maybe incubating project. I don't remember exactly. And I searched their documentation for SBOM.
Yeah.
But obviously that's a manual process and doesn't necessarily say that any two produce things the same way.
Yeah.
But it may be worth looking at, okay, how do you get, if we use some automated method that works for, 50% of these, and then we apply it to a whole bunch we don't know beforehand if they produce SBOMs, how many SBOMs do we find?
Yeah, that's very interesting point because the documentation is one thing and also the GitHub actions that is the true the really true how they are using and applying the things in
It's
this.
not, though. Kubernetes
It's
and
not that?
Knative both
Mm-hmm.
publish SBOMs and do not have anything in GitHub Actions about SBOMs.
And how they produce, how to automatize.
Well, Kubernetes is using the bomb tool in Prow somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and Knative is using
Ah,
Prow as
right.
well, but a different tool. So there's both recognizing the tool and there's what CI tool do you actually use? It might not be GitHub Actions. But if we just look for SBOMs, if we look for the output, we're effectively saying we know there's a big patch of mud here. If we look at the number of different boot prints, it doesn't matter, you know, how they walk across the mud. They're going to leave boot prints. So we can just count the boot prints to figure out the number of people. We don't need to watch the whole time.
Okay, Tom, check how is the process and what they are doing with the output, or do you know what they are
Well,
doing with
if
the
we
output?
if we can get an SBOM, then we can start feeding it into Guac, which was the whole point of this, and then
Mm,
analyze the information that's in there. Um,
okay,
but
Tom.
we set up
Yeah,
something where we could feed a bunch of stuff into Guac, and then discovered that we had nothing to feed in.
yeah,
I mean,
Tom. What?
relatively nothing. We ended up with like 9 or 10 things, but not these projects. Some other stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can get WAC is fed by S-Bond, and it will be nice to check how they are created too.
I mean, we could check how they're created.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think the more interesting question is, are they accurate? And
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be able to tell that fairly quickly after we feed them in based on whether the answers they give make any sense or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think how they are creating this bond with which parameters as
Yeah.
to
And,
address it. Yeah.
if we're mostly looking to figure out all the dependencies and stuff, then, you know, if that stuff's in there and the rest of the stuff is completely different, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't know, maybe an introduction for everyone. I don't know
Yeah.
if everyone presented, but I don't know Thiago and Victor. I don't think so. But hi, my name is Carol, and yeah, I don't know how are you if you want to do some intro to.
Sure, yeah. Sorry, I joined a couple minutes late. I was trying to join earlier, but I had a meeting that basically ran over. So my name is Thiago, right? I'm a senior cybersecurity uh, engineer at GM, right? So one of my main goals joining these sessions is to basically see if I actually can support any specific projects or initiatives. So yeah, that's basically why I'm here. Nice to meet you all.
Like Victor, independent. Just might happen in KubeCon. So I'm a generalist. Worked for Oracle for 17 years, in independent 3 years. Just learning everything and anything. When it comes to SBOM, I do participate in the SPX community. Again, I'm a generalist. So the reason I'm actually more interested in, first of all, Jen mentioned this meeting. That's why I come here and see what's going on here. And second is I'm actually going forward be interested in probably participate more in the Kubernetes security. That's another reason. So what Evan said earlier that your general response, can you like for SPX? I'm sorry, for Kubernetes, where do you see that SBOM generation?
Where do we see it?
Is
We
it
have talked to folks who have talked to folks who've talked to Puerco, and the S bombs are in a unpublicized cloud storage bucket somewhere.
okay? Because I'm looking at the Kubernetes website. I don't see a SBOM there. That's why I'm asking.
No,
Okay.
there is no documentation as to how to use any of the S bombs that the Kubernetes project does produce.
Because Perco is also on the Kubernetes release team, so I'm sure that will
He
be
knows where
incorporated.
all the bodies are buried.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
may be reasons why those bodies have remained buried, but they are producing S bombs, but they are not consumable by anyone outside the project, and not many of the people inside the project either.
Got it.
And I don't know the reasoning for that, and I would be hesitant to speculate. So I can only tell you that Matt went asking, and the query went through, I think, like Jeremy Rickard and Dims, and I think I heard it ended in Puerco, but I'm not 100% certain of that. So it's a little bit of hearsay already. But yes, they exist. They're in a cloud storage bucket somewhere. I'm not sure if access is tightly controlled, but the I don't know what that bucket name is, so it's not broadly advertised.
I know Kubernetes is tightly, how to say, tightly watched.
Yeah.
Um, And also maybe a little explain the different initiatives of tax security, because right now these initiatives belongs to tax security, and
Mm-hmm.
also Kubernetes has the SIG security that they have special meetings for talking about the Kubernetes security.
Yeah.
But for example, this meeting is specifically for some initiative that is called, I think is in the title is there.
Software supply chain insights.
Exactly. And we are in the sub meeting, like this is as we have the tax security that is general now that Evan can explain better than me that we have this general meeting that you can go with an idea and submit to create an initiative like this and
So,
try to develop a sub project. But yeah.
yeah, so there's a couple different things going on. One One thing is that Kubernetes, being a large, complex, and mature project, has its own security forum, SIG security. And for the most part, CNCF is just happy to let Kubernetes do that thing on its own. So if you have a Kubernetes specific security issue, that's usually discussed in SIG security. But the overall CNCF has a group for security of all the other projects outside of Kubernetes, and that is tag security and compliance. So roughly, if it's Kubernetes only, then Kubernetes SIG security will be all over that, and you don't need to bring it to the CNCF. If you're trying to do something that works across many different CNCF projects, then the CNCF tag security and compliance is probably your better forum. We do talk, but not as closely as you might expect. Within the CNCF, there's two types of efforts. There are projects, which are ongoing, long-running things, and then there are initiatives, which are supposed to be time-bounded. And one of the topics I wanted to bring up today was we've been doing this for about 4 or 5 months. Our first meeting looks to have been on August 11th. So we should be reaching the end of our time-bounded mission in the next couple months, and we should figure out what our outputs are going to look like. And unfortunately, well, I've got all of you here. Matt has been driving a lot of this, and he can't make it today, it sounds like. So I'm happy to discuss that, but we'll probably want to get Matt on the call in the next meeting as well. But yeah, I had an item to ask, what do we think is achievable by end of January, which gives us another 2 months or so to figure out what the deliverables for this particular effort were. The original goal was to be able to load up a cluster with CNCF software and Guac, and then consume all the SBOMs for the CNCF software and ask questions like which libraries introduce the most risk in terms of being broadly depended upon by the software in this cluster. Both license risk and like CVE vulnerability risk, like Log4j. And so we set about setting up a test cluster on Kind and getting Guac loaded up. And then we discovered that we didn't actually have SBOMs for any of the software we were loading, and we needed to figure out how to do that. So that has been our last 3.5 months, 3 months really, is trying to find the SBOMs for CNCF projects that we are fairly sure exist, but we haven't been able to find them. So that's a big guess rather than certainty.
So just to confirm, the main goal was to basically load CNCF projects to that specific cluster, and then through that specific tool try to understand the specific license and CVE vulns as part of that. Was that the main goal?
Very close. We wanted to be able to ask forward-looking questions about in the future, if there were a license rug pull, like the Terraform rug pull, for example, what software in the cluster would need to fix things before they could, publish new releases, for example, or pick up security fixes from the rug pulled library. So it's less about what the current vulnerabilities are and more about what are the future risks. And the goal was to do this in a Kind cluster on desktop to provide a sample environment that anyone could run, with the idea that this would be broadly useful to end user companies who might be looking to assess their own risk on their actual clusters. But we were going to have set up something that anyone could run so that rather than having a CNCF public good instance that everyone could go and ask questions of, everyone could understand how to get these answers themselves. And Guac looked to be a promising tool to do that. If we had any SBOMs to ask questions of. So
Oh.
our initial assumption was that it was easy to get these SBOMs. And so that was not our original effort, but things have detoured as we discovered problems that we didn't know about.
Yeah. And is that something that we can contribute, test ourselves, or how does that work? How would that work?
Give me a moment. Our meeting notes have a lot of content in them, and Matt did show off something that he had that set up a lot of the underlying infrastructure along with some extra stuff because that was okay. So Matt has something here that was his original plan. One thing to note, Matt was experimenting with being able to use some GraphQL Federation stuff for reasons. And that led him to using Docker Compose over Kubernetes. But the goal was to have this running on a Kubernetes cluster. So feel free to borrow from that and get a Kubernetes cluster with some sample software and Guac up. We've been doing this on individual, like not an official CNCF common repo for right now until we know what it is that we want to publish. At which point we can figure out whether putting it in the initiatives folder in CNCF TOC or a new repo or what is the best option. But until we have something that can either answer the questions or we have a different answer that we'd like to publish, we haven't spent a lot of effort on getting an official place to put answers that we don't know the shape of them.
Yeah.
Once we know the shape of the answers, it'll be much easier to figure out where they go.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
And yes, if it turns out that we actually can't collect the SBOMs that we think we need, then there's no point in publishing, here's how to set up a cluster with Guac to ingest SBOMs, because we'll have no practical experience with consuming them and asking useful questions. And if we can get it set up, then that's great. And that may be where we end up, after this time. Yeah. So that's a brain dump. I'm happy to answer more questions, but I have nothing else. And if everyone else is done, then I'll give you 25 minutes back. There is also a Slack channel if you are interested in joining. I will drop it in over here. And a notes document that you might not have seen because annoyingly you can't see the chat history from before you join in Zoom. I understand that there are totally good reasons for doing that from a product perspective, but for open source meetings, it's a pain. but hopefully that gives people who are interested at least a couple things to try poking at. Either setting up, a guac, or potentially there's a lightweight guac that Michael Lieberman has been working on that if you want to try setting that up, I can get you in touch with him. But I think until we have the S-bombs, the rest of it is decorative.
Yeah.
Rather than load bearing.
Yeah, I think my advice will be go to the next meeting and try to review the topics because we are discovering together something like that, and that you like to
Well,
help.
I mean, I think more than one person can take different approaches on finding S-bombs, and then we can come back and compare notes and say, hey, technique A finds 40%, technique B finds 30%, but it's a different 30%. So if we put the two together, it's 70. Or, technique A finds 40%, technique B finds 30%, and 20% of them overlap. So we're only at 50% coverage. That alone would be interesting information if we have two different techniques. So, and I think actually one of the other interesting things that may be worth coming out of this is simply recognizing that it's hard to actually find the artifacts that a project publishes.
Yeah.
I mean, that may not be true, but my experience is if you actually want to find the artifacts for a particular project, there's no standard way of finding out what the project publishes. And if you go use something like the Bitnami packaged images, you'll pick up a whole bunch of stuff that's not even in the project too sometimes. Also, the Bitnami images at this point are probably a big anti-pattern because you have to go pay Broadcom a lot of money. And yeah. I guess it was the Bitnami packaged Helm charts, not just the images. But yeah, they do a lot of packaging.
Yeah. But yeah, I will try to look. I think it's a great idea, and maybe work with Thiago or Victor to push this, to compare notes, as you say.
Yeah.
So it would be nice. Because right
Certainly,
now,
yeah. Yeah, no, that'll be awesome. I'll actually access the link that you just sent here even and go for it. Try to get that set up and share
Okay.
some notes. Yep.
Sounds good. And I'm pretty sure that Matt will still be on Slack, even though he wasn't able to make this meeting. So you can also poke him there for questions.
Sure.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing silence that suggests that maybe the meeting is over. So I'm going to go close the meeting and go on to my next thing. It was nice to meet you. And to
Same
see you
here.
again, Carol and Victor. We ran into each other at KubeCon, so that was nice to get to see someone
well,
in person.
definitely I will pin you for more initiatives. Do you know?
Yep.
Okay. See you.
See you.
Thanks, all. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, ciao. Bye, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye, bye.
Eu não sei se eu falo em português ou em
Não, pode
português.
falar, mas aí agora eu lembrei, manda mensagem que a gente se fala melhor, inclusive para trabalhar juntos nisso, se você, e a gente faz. Eu lembro agora eu leí o histórico,
Sim.
agora que eu me toquei. Mas vamos nos
Não,
falar, tá bom? Eu te
vou
mando
sim, vou
mensagem
sim.
lá.
Tá
WhatsApp
certo,
também
então.
me manda. Tá
Tá
bom,
bom.
abraço.
Até mais. Obrigado. Tchau, tchau.
Obrigada a você.